To create a psychedelic rhythm, you can use the granular synthesis sound design technique, which is, in my case, a granular sampling of a vocal loop. And so basically, to create a granular sampler instrument, you need to have a drum rack able to place some audio samples, slice it into different slots here, okay? And then in combination with a Max for Live device from Futurephonic, which is called Irregularity, and an arpeggiator, the drum rack will play some random slices at different level and groove that you set up and that you can automate with some pre-mapped control of your instrument track. You can open and expand your drum rack in the mixer to see all the slices available and to understand easier what's going on when playing. Okay, so as you can see, it's playing randomly all the slices of my drum rack. And then some other modulation effects can be applied to go deeper in the groove. In my case, you have two random LFOs, which will modulate the release and the transpose of each slice. And well, finally, to spatialize your sound, you can add a bit of delay, of course, and reverb, and some other customized effects of your choice inside an FX rack if you want. And this one is a great one with some frequency shifting, modulation, psychedelic delay, robot Chucky, DSR, robot delay, and the radio style voice. Well, it's a really nice FX rack for voice samples, okay? When all your devices are correctly set up inside your instrument track here, which is your granular sampling instrument, you must map some parameters to its macros here, okay, to be able to create some live automations in your timeline with your controller. Of course, save your granular instrument track until you are satisfied and you're done. Let me explain you how to create this instrument step by step, and yeah, let's start from the drum rack. Basically, to create a drum rack playing some sliced samples, it's really easy on Ableton Live. You have to insert an audio track inside your project, Control T, add an audio track, and go to the browser, and you select any samples that you want. In my case, it will be the same from this final result. So this is my audio loop. Right click on it, show in browser, and yeah, this is this one.
A high level of protection against direct and airborne chemical contact.
Okay, so you drag and drop into another track to preserve my transient in the warp mode. So to preserve the sound, I have to be in Complex Pro warp mode, okay? Complex Pro, and like this, it can pitch the sound without altering so much the sound. And to create some slice into a MIDI track, it's simply by the right click of your mouse, slice to new MIDI track. It's asking how to create the slice per transient, per warp marker, per bar, per half note, etc. In our case, we will choose the transient. The slicing preset, let it in built-in. By default, it's great. Preserve warped timing on. And yeah, you have your drum rack here. You can expand it here. You can expand the waveform here. You can expand on the mixer your drum rack to see all the slices that have been created. You can adjust the display like this. And so now on your controller, the attack, we don't care. I open the map mode, the browser, to see all the pre-mapped controls on this instrument. And so all what you see macro name is the attack. You don't need, we don't need in that case. So select all the attack and you can delete. Okay, I have deleted from the parameters of the mapping, but I have also to rename it, Control R. And what I will want to have instead of this macro, I will need to modulate the pitch, well, the transpose of each audio samples of this drum rack. Okay, so let's call it transpose, and that's right. Okay, now it's time to map the 24 slices, to map the transpose of the 24 slices hand by hand. Okay, right click on the transpose value here of each samples of each slice and map to transpose. The same for the 24 slices. Okay, I will do this right now and come back. So here we are with the transpose for each slice mapped into the same macro here. You can verify by turning the knob. Okay, so every slice can be transposed now, but of course the goal is to modulate this action by scanning each slice in a sort of rhythm made by an arpeggiator to can be able to play that psychedelic rhythm. So we need to add a Max for Live device made by the excellent guys of Futurephonic, which will be able basically to scan each of my slice randomly, okay, and link it with an arpeggiator at a certain rhythm that you choose. It will play in rhythm randomly the slice of your drum rack. To do this, you have to go to the browser. I mean, you will be able to download this instrument below the video, of course. But me, I need to go to search it. Its name is Irregularity. It's a MIDI effect, a max MIDI effect from Futurephonic. You drag and drop before the rack, the drum rack. And so basically this Max for Live device will play and scan randomly the number of slices that you want. That's the sample count. And also with the range that you choose here, the random length or the random velocity of each slice, okay? In my case, I want that the instrument will play all the slices randomly. So 24, I put 24 here. But by itself, it doesn't do nothing, okay? Don't worry, you have to link this Max for Live device with an ARP. MIDI effect, arpeggiator. Drag and drop before the Max for Live device. And you're done. As you can see in the mixer there, now it's playing randomly all my slices. Okay. But of course we will adjust the values to be able to play better than now. The rate, speed rate, 1/8, it's not enough, okay? 1/16, much more nice. But in our case, if we want that it's playing automatically without us to push the controller, of course, you need to create a MIDI pattern and to put a note of 1 bar or 2 bar, let's say 2 bar, okay, on the first slice of the drum rack. And the irregularity with the combination of the harp will play randomly all your slices as we set up just before, okay? So put play. Okay, okay, so that's the principle of granular sampling with a scanning device linked to an arpeggiator to create the psychedelic rhythm. Then, when you have done all of this, you can start to group all the devices inside one instrument track. Control G, okay, and this will make you able to save your instrument track and to have 8 macros to pre-map any control of your choice from the instrument, okay? So you name it with the disk icon here, name it Granular Synth Design Test in my case. And when you save it, now your instrument is saved with all the samples inside, okay? So here is your instrument track, but as you can see, it's missing still a lot of effects on it. But we have done the structure of this granular sampling instrument. Let's speak now about deeper modulations that I will add to this instrument. First of all, as I told you in the beginning of the video, if we have mapped all the transpose of each slice hand by hand, it's because we want to automate this transpose. We want to modulate this transpose macro, okay? And to put it inside a general macro here of your instrument. So to do this, and the same, sorry, for the release of each slice. So there is 2 parameters to modulate. How we do this possible? With an LFO. LFO, and not an LFO regular, a random LFO. And this will be able to create, as you can see in the final result here, that kind of permanent random automation of the transpose and the release, okay, which is here 2 Max for Live devices, which are random LFO, modulating the release here and modulating the transpose here, okay. And to go further, because it's only modulating randomly without any control from your side, what I want is to control the amount, the depth of my LFO modulation. So to do this, you just have to map the depth button to a macro of your instrument here, which is already done in this result, but we will go back to the design test instrument. And so to modulate the transpose and the release, you need to add a random LFO. Random LFO from a MIDI effect. You go to the browser, you type LFO in the MIDI effect or in the user library. And I don't find it. Yes, well, it's here. It's an LFO Max for Live device. You drag and drop after the drum rack and twice, because we need 2 LFOs. To be random, it's just here. You have to put random and here random, okay? You need to map the transpose. You just click map and click on the transpose. You need to map the release of each slice. You click map and you go to the release. You click release on the release macro. Let's put a color, the same from the transpose modulation. So here we have 2 parameters modulated by a random LFO. By default, the rate speed is not what we need. So you need to put in sync mode here with the little note yellow icon, and put a rate of 1/8 is nice, okay, for to keep the groove of our psychedelic rhythm. The depths, because here, as you can see now, it's modulating correctly, but I don't have any control over it, any manual control, I mean. So what I will need is to control the depths of the LFO amount. If I am at 0%, as you can see, it doesn't modulate anymore. It's bypassed, let's say. And when you go up in the depths range, the more it's modulating, okay? As you can see on the transpose macro or the release macro up, it's stopping to modulating the release, and it's now modulating at the maximum level the release. So control these steps, and as well I want to control the offset position of the macro when it starts to modulate. If I stop the modulation, just to show you that the offset button will decide of the starting position of my macro, okay? Same for the release. So definitely I want to control these two parameters for each random LFOs. So right click map to macro 1, right click map to macro 2, right click map to macro 3, right click map to macro 4. Rename them random pitch modulation, random release modulation. Put a color for each macro, and you're done. Verify that the modulation is working on your controller. As you can see, it's modulating correctly. That's the modulation of the transpose and the release by the random LFOs, okay? And control deeper with some macros in my instrument track, which will be able to control the depths, the random intensity of the modulation, and the modulation of the pitch starting point, okay? Now let's add the final touch, which is the effects, of course, delay, reverb, and more. So let's back to the final result. And I think I will just copy and paste to my new instrument, because it's an FX rack good for voice samples in my case, with a lot of nice effects that I will use in my instrument. So before the two LFOs, I will put this FX rack, copy and paste. There is a nice radio style effect for voice. There is a very nice robot delay on it, a nice control of the delay time, a robot Chucky, which is also funny, the de-esser, the Psy delay, some other delay with frequency shifting, and a modulating other parameter. So that's a pretty complete FX rack. And just to finalize this instrument, I go back to the final result. And as you can see, there is a delay and reverb, classic. I will copy and paste to my new instrument. Here, the delay. And here, the reverb. I can collapse the LFO, it's annoying my eyes. I can collapse the drum rack. And now, so yeah, from these effects, delay and reverb, and the FX rack here, I have a 4 macro still available on my instrument track. So I will just use, for example, the dry wet button of the delay, the dry wet button of the reverb, the robot delay macro here. I will put it again here in my general macro instrument. Macros 5 for this one, for example. Map to macro 5, the robot delay, and put the same color like this. The delay time is also pretty nice to have a pitch delay time during the live play. I like to do this with my hands. Map to macro 6, put the color. Okay. And the dry wet button to 7, and the reverb wet dry wet button to the 8. But here you have to rename it delay, and here reverb. I put a color for the delay, I put a color for the reverb. You can collapse everything. Your instrument should be ready now, as you can verify on your controller or by playing your MIDI pattern here. As you can see, it's playing randomly all my slices. It's okay. I have a lot of modulation now in front of my eyes and at my fingertips, okay? And that's pretty nice instrument for granular synthesis method for the psychedelic rhythm. You save your instrument at the end when you are satisfied, you overwrite it. So that's the granular synth sound design technique.